are at one of my favorite parts of this conference. We're going to talk about auditioning, and I have the experts at auditioning here with me. I present to you Anita Inslee. She is a casting director of live entertainment for Disney. She's been at Disney for 14 years. And I have Stephen Gelpi, am I pronouncing it correctly?
That is correct, yeah.
He's a manager of talent casting strategies and initiatives. And he's been at Disney for 9 years, everyone. So what's going to happen is they're going to talk to you all about the audition process as it pertains to Disney and probably every place else. After that, they will take you through the steps of a live audition. We're going to take raised hand volunteers to come up and actually be auditioned. And they're going to give you feedback in real time in terms of what they observe and what you can maybe work on for your next audition. So when we get to that step though, they'll take raised hands, you come up and do your thing. All right, any questions surrounding that? And I think the teachers in the room will find this valuable because we can use this as a tool to work with our students. Okay, so I will get out of your way. Go ahead.
Sorry. I was wondering if the piece had to be kind of related to like the Disney content and like kind of. Okay.
Absolutely not. Okay, Stephen, can you take it away? Take care.
actually, this is perfect. If you're comfortable moving in, you know, a little bit closer and meeting someone, feel free to. If you're not comfortable and you want your space, then I respect that as well. But if we can eliminate the need for mics and just talk to each other and make this feel conversational, then I'd love to try to do that. But I'll start to just, I guess for both of us, to say thank you for being here. It's been a privilege for us as first-time visitors to this conference to be able to take in all of the sessions. And I'm not sure if there are any other first-timers in the room today, but you first time? First time?
It's my first time.
Yeah, okay, awesome, yeah. I don't know if you've had the same impact, you know, of just being a part of these sessions and learning. It's been really inspiring, and I don't know, I think our cups are all full from the experience so far. Can you all hear me okay?
Yeah.
We'll just project, we'll do the theater thing and project, okay? But yeah, so just to kind of set expectations for our time together today, we're going to try to provide some information really to talk about our experiences, both our journeys to our roles within Disney Live Entertainment, who Disney Live Entertainment even is, because that Disney name means so many different things, and then talk about the things from our perspective as casting professionals on this team. The things we see, the trends that we see, and the things that we believe, again, from our perspective, that would help set people up for success, whether you are a prospective actor, singer, dancer, musician, or if you are a leader of students and actors, to hopefully try to share some of those bits of best practices as well. And I guess to start things off, as you see, we have a slide with a little bit of brief introductions, if you wouldn't mind. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey here.
Hi, I'm Anita Inslee, and I started off as a performer. I did stage, television, and a movie. And I moved behind the table to directing and choreographing. I got my MFA in my 40s in musical theater, and I also got a ballet teaching certification from the Royal Academy in London, which sent me to being faculty and teaching in musical theater programs, dance programs, and music programs. I continued to work professionally and freelance. Before I came to Disney, I was a freelance performer for 30 years. So I didn't go in as a young person to forge my career there. I went in straight into American Idol as a vocal coach and a producer. Now, the producer term within the operation of American Idol meant that I was the last stop in casting the show we did 7 shows a day with guests that showed up, that auditioned. We had casting directors that filtered them through, sent them to producers, they went onto the stage. I spent the majority of my time, because my skill set is coaching and getting product out of people, getting execution done. So I spent a lot of time as vocal coach preparing the guests for the show. From there, I went into entertainment management, and I managed the stages, the performance stages at Hollywood Studios. We had this thing called COVID happened, and so we closed, and I came back to Magic Kingdom and did the special event entertainment at Magic Kingdom. There are parties at night that are separate tickets called Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party and Very Merry Christmas Party, filled with entertainment rides, and so I did the entertainment for that and managed some shows. Been in cast with some of the casting directors with American Idol, so I have relationships, and the casting team knew of my history, so I became an entertainment manager. Now, while I was doing all that, I also stayed on faculty at some universities and taught voice and acting classes as well. So I had my foot in both worlds, the academic world and the entertainment world, and I love being that bridge, because the two things are not supposed to be the same, and that was always amazing to me, that people didn't realize. The academic, it's not that entertainment is better, academic is better. That's where you learn what you're supposed to do, when you learn all the things, and you do all the things you're supposed to do. and entertainment is where you execute all that. So I ended up in the casting department also with my bachelor's degree because I was not supposed to go into entertainment in the 80s. My family wanted me to be an engineer. We compromised and I became a journalist. But I still went into performance right after that. I continued my training. So because of that, when I was on faculty, I wrote reference books on teaching performance and grading performance. And then during the furlough, because my two sons asked me to, I wrote a fiction series, and it's an LGBTQ romantic suspense. So I have that out in the market as well. So, yeah, and now I'm in the casting department.
Thank you. Good morning again. My name is Stephen, and I began my career, really, my introduction to the company was as an actor, as a singer. When I was born and raised down in Miami and was in college down there at the time, and would go up with my roommates. We would drive up to Orlando because they were doing these equity open call auditions, and so that was a chance to start to get the reps in, you know, starting to just go up and do these open calls and get familiar as we thought about, you know, what happened, the life after college, and I accidentally got a offer in the summer after I finished my school and a chance to join the show. And actually at the time I was auditioning because I'd been up there as a kid and I'd seen Festival of the Lion King in Orlando, and I loved it. I wanted to be a part of that show. And so that's what I was sort of pursuing, never really thinking for a minute that there were other opportunities for people that looked like me, if I'm being quite honest. And I thought, hey, that's where the brown and black people are. They're at Lion King, so I'm going to go to Lion King. Yeah, as you know, and it was actually I ended up getting cast thanks to this woman here, Marsha Jackson Randolph in the front, who was my first show director at Disney, and she cast me in a show called Finding Nemo the Musical. And so I had an opportunity to do that and had an incredible experience. I did it for a few years. I loved my time there, and eventually looked to just expand and continue to grow and look out in the industry and move to New York. But all of my experiences after were measured up against my time at Disney. I always thought, was I treated the same way? Was I compensated the same way? And did I have the same sort of experience? And so I looked back to the theme park industry when I ultimately wanted to transition into offstage roles. So I did that in Southern California, working for other companies, and a chance to really grow and develop my skills and learn things that I didn't know in production and entertainment operations, working at SeaWorld down there. And then it was in 2015 that I looked back to the company, to Disney Live Entertainment in the parks, to join the team at Disneyland as a casting director. And it was there, and then eventually in Florida, where I spent 7 years as a casting director, casting AGVA and equity stage productions. I also had the opportunity to cast hundreds of special events, utilizing our internal and external artists, and then ultimately supporting the Tokyo Disney Resort as well, finding actors and singers, dancers to kind of have the experience of going and living in Asia and abroad for a while. But we talk about those experiences because neither of us really started out and planned to pursue these roles, but they were opportunities, at least speaking for myself, that wouldn't have been available had I not had this entry-level experience as an actor and as an artist to really get my foot in the door with the company. And so we want to talk a little bit about the opportunities that we support as a casting team, and again, who we are and what we are. But I wanted to, hopefully, we'll see if the audio works. We didn't do a sound check, and that's why we're casting and not technicians. We'll see if this audio works to hopefully help. Let's see.
there's a Bluetooth thing over here that my man kept running over to.
Yeah, it's connected. We'll just
But
see.
I think it goes off. Like, I think that's what's the problem.
What draws us to theater?
Oh, yes.
What inspires us? What is this longing we have to share stories from the stage? Maybe it's in our DNA. There's just something about a story that resonates in our bones. And since the beginning of time, stories were meant to be shared. Above all, theater is an experience. In real time, in a physical space, an energy exchange, face to face. And theater doesn't replicate life so much as it transcends it. For we all long to be called from the mundane into the impossible, into a thrill, a wonder, a hope. And at its heart, past the costumes and characters, past the stages and the spectacles, theater holds a remarkable power that allows us to see and be seen, to view the world through someone else's eyes, or maybe see ourselves for the first time as we've never imagined. This kind of theater not only captures our hearts, it illuminates the world around us. There's this sense of belonging that's remarkable, especially in live entertainment, because the audience is right there with you. A crowd of strangers, suddenly and completely one. And when it's over, you've shared the same experience, no matter how different you are. And I think that changes us. We really do want stories that call us to change. We want to believe that there is something more. It's the longing we all feel, both the actors and the audience. Theater in all its forms illuminates not only what is, but what could be. It offers us the hope that perhaps we are not alone after all. And maybe life isn't just about us, but the lives we touch and the ways we contribute to the greater good. And he says that I can. Hi, my name is Mita Espinosa, and the beginnings of my career began right here at the Disneyland Resort. I started in the parade department, went on to perform at Tokyo Disneyland, got my first union card, and I still remember how it felt to sing my first solo on a Disney stage. Disney holds its artists to such a high standard, and there are so many core principles and work ethics that I still hold with me today. I've gone on to star on Broadway, had some experience in TV and film, but I've come back to Disney more than once. I was able to be the voice in the sky for several fireworks shows, and one of my biggest dreams come true, voicing an animated character for Disney animation. Through it all, my passion is still the same. I still want to tell stories that make a difference. I still want to touch the hearts of the people I perform for. How about you? What draws you to theater? Inspires you? And who's thinking who's next? It's your turn to make a difference. Join us.
Cool. Well, I love reinforcing all the stuff we're going to talk about with the video and the imagery, because it tells a story that there's no way that we can really properly encapsulate.
Disney montage is always good. 14 years.
I get like goosebumps every time, even though I've had to watch like edits of that so many times, because of the people that are involved in it. Because there are some folks that we know that are part of it, projects that we've worked on, and then also Eden's story. I think it's one that is a huge point of pride, I know, for her, but for us as well. And she's one of those big Disneyland celebrities, getting to see when we actually shot her video, the people that knew she was coming, because it was that story of someone who came in right out of high school, and it was her first job, post Young Americans, and kind of starting out in the parade department, and consistently growing and growing her skills that she brought from day one. But the journey all around the world that took her to where she is now is a huge point of pride and emphasis for us. But But yeah, hopefully from that you also got a chance to see, you know, places and characters, storytellers that you may have not known existed within our parks. And I think it speaks to just kind of the time over the last few years, all of the growing sandboxes that we get to play in with the expansion into like these Marvel worlds and Lucasfilm, Star Wars worlds, and what that means for the storytellers that we get to bring into these spaces to tell these really unique, you know, out of this world stories. But I also thought it was really important to kind of talk about who we are as Disney Live Entertainment. As I said off the top, like Disney means so many different things, and it could mean like ESPN to someone, it could be feature animation or Pixar or Lucasfilm, and that list goes like on and on. And if you ever see like images of the Walt Disney Company, it can be exhausting, and there's no way to actually rattle off all of those names. But we work within Disney Live Entertainment, which is kind of the live arm of our team that primarily supports the parks, resorts, and cruise line entertainment. So we do not have the affiliation, direct sort of relationship with Disney Theatricals. Those are projects that are supported by other team members within the company, and we really focus on all of those shows and entertainment offerings within the park side. And
Is everybody familiar with Disney Theatricals?
Yes.
yeah, thank you.
My friend who actually works at Disney right now.
So, please explain, I'm not familiar with Disney Theatricals.
Those are our full-length Broadway shows.
Yes.
So for the Marvel productions, is that like just straight, like I guess like a straight play? Are there musical elements to it? Like if it were like I saw the Black Panther.
Yeah, so I think it depends on the day that you ask, actually. Yeah, because out at Disneyland, they recently opened a new original musical based, it's called Rogers the Musical, and it's based off of, I'm sorry?
Captain America?
Yeah, Captain America, and it tells that story through a musical, a book
The
musical.
musical that appeared in Hawkeye.
Is
Yeah,
that,
and
is
Hawkeye,
that when
yeah.
I saw the Black Captain America? Was the Falcon? Was that part of that musical?
So no, he appears in some of our parks.
Yeah, okay.
There are stunt shows and like character experiences within the
That's
parks. Yeah, so you may have seen those, like character,
Okay.
the chance to like meet and encounter some characters. There also are shows like the Warriors of Wakanda that you saw. They put on a show.
So great.
Yeah, you're right.
So great.
A powerful show to
Wow.
that point as well.
How many times do they rock? I mean, do some of the groups rock out in those smaller shows per day?
Yeah, so that really, the question, if you didn't hear, was how many shows per day do they do? And it really differs depending on a few different things. Like it could be the site. So they may run 5 times a day in Paris. The California show may do 3 to
What's the most
5.
you've ever done in a day?
The most?
The shows, the number of shows you do per day depends on the difficulty and what it, and the impact it has on the performers. So their Voyage of the Little Mermaid, when we had it, ran continuously, and it had puppeteers, Eric, and the mermaid, and she was on the rock. The show was 18 minutes a day, so there were 28 to 30 shows. Now, there were multiple casts. But of course, there's only one mermaid, right?
Of course.
Y'all weren't swapping the mermaid out?
I'm
like
not, I'm
sometimes?
not.
Listen,
Alternate
I'm
mermaids.
not gonna,
Yeah, so
Take with magic.
yeah, and to that point, like the amount of shows per day, that's not something that we just like make up on our own as a company.
Yeah.
In many of those cases, we work with the union that's represented, so equity and the company kind of come together to determine how many shows a day a performer should do. Given the nature of that show. And even within the show, it gets complicated because the roles are different. So one role, you could be singing and dancing
And
or
flying
acting.
on a foil.
Yeah, and so because of that, they say, no, you can only do this twice a day versus someone else is 4 times a day.
Okay.
Because of the physical.
I've never had that curiosity before, so.
Yeah, it just depends on the impact. And if you see our parade performers come down, you will see parade performers dancing, and you will see castle show performers dancing, and that is what distinguishes our equity from, and that's based on what the choreography is. So, and if it's outside in direct sunlight, or if it's inside in air conditioning, and what kind of how it taxes the body.
Okay.
Like the Eric that was in the show, at the end of the show, Ariel ran to him and he lifted her up and swung around, so his matrix was different from, so.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. I think about like going back to my first job performing in the Finding Nemo show. I learned 2 roles. One of those, I think I walked on stage 2 times, and every other entrance was on a moving set piece. So like I didn't have to sweat, and that was nice. And then the other role, I was running around
In the house?
in the house, full on running.
He was Marlon.
Holding a puppet, like
He was the first Black Marlon.
Thank you. And even the times you were off stage to get water was choreographed because you had to wipe the sweat off your face, have a sip of water, and get hooked into a voice system to fly. So it was choreographed of who would hold a puppet so you can grab a water and then someone else had a towel. I mean, it was physically exerting, and as a result, I did far less shows per day. So that's something we do consider.
I think
Yes.
that's what goes to deep in it.
Yeah.
When are we going to see a black Disney prince? Black princes seem to be absent in the world of Disney for some strange reason.
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know.
It is one that is being constantly discussed. Yeah, and just know that there are those behind the scenes that are asking those same questions. We very often talk about our world in the park being somewhat the end user, and I'll explain what that means.
Yeah, dude.
Much of what we present in the park comes to us from the screen or from some other source. What you will find is once those shows have been delivered to us, in addition, there are other shows, atmosphere shows and things like that that we create that are not necessarily publicly known, but if you come to the park, you might see someone who is a black leading man. Tale of the Lion King, that is a Simba figure. That is a leading male and leading female. On Broadway, who's the love interest for, what's her name? Hans, what's
Hans,
it?
Christoph.
No, Christoph. Christoph was cast as African American.
From the beginning.
On our cruise ship, from the beginning, on our cruise ship, Anna and Elsa very well may be cast. But I get what you're saying. That idea of little girls, who do you aspire? If you're looking for someone who looks like daddy, that's an important story to tell.
More specific, human black prince.
Yeah.
As opposed to animal.
Yeah.
You see a lot of that.
So just know that right now we're addressing the IP that is being passed to us, and it's coming to us primarily from that source. But those questions are being asked, and great, yes,
And the way that what we have done has been received is speaking to these very same people as well. They see the hunger for this, so it's not impossible. But Marcia, and I want you to introduce yourself. And
Sure.
said something yesterday, and it was the first time I heard it, and I've been doing this job for a while, that we're an end user. And that is probably one of the few frustrating things for me is I am given what I have to source and cast, and then in the middle of it you find that it shrinks a little bit because of some parameters on it, because of IP or intellectual property or what we already have, and that's what she means by being an end user. We already know what they look like. We already know what their skin tone is. We already know, and we don't.
Well, yeah. Just heads up, we got a young Disney Prince ready for the audition right there. Right there, just so y'all know. Just so you know, we blazing trails is gonna happen. We got bullets.
And I would like to say, also, there are, like Marsha said, there are shows that aren't animated, that don't begin as an animated feature, that have black men in them, and they are the lead. So you would have to be, like Hoop-de-Doo Review. Anybody know what that is?
Yes, I live in Florida.
It's a nighttime dinner show, and it's very popular, and it's all you can eat. It's my favorite part. It's all you can eat ribs and what, chicken? But it's a full-length show that is broken up into parts, and we have leading men in the show. It's a very diverse show. It's very archetypal in the character forms, but it is a diverse cast.
And if I can just tag on to the reason that I was particularly excited to see Stephen, to your point, a strong team of actors, a strong male actor. When he came in to the audition, he blew me away. That was easy for me to cast him in that role, but I was also very conscious of, here we seeing a caring black father going on a journey for his son. That was important for audiences to be able to see that depiction of a black man. So yes, he was a fish.
Yeah.
He was a fish. He was a fish. It was not part of a human world, but I think the point that we're making is where we can take and my role is as a show director, I can lobby and try to take, and then during the time that I was a show director, I would lobby to take that latitude to be able to do that where we could. So it is definitely a process that is evolving as we create stories in part, and then as those are given to us.
And it's a show, a coveted show for people to get into, and the house seats how many people?
1,700.
1,700 people, and it ran how many shows a day?
Like 5 to 6 shows a day.
So that's a lot of exposure. It depends on the show. This one was,
Originally 42 minutes, and then
Yeah.
the ones outside can be, they're matrixed at 20, but they come in as like 18.
sorry.
She had,
Yeah, and we may have moved beyond what my question was supposed to be, but going back towards your mention of end user, does this, because in my mind I'm always thinking economics, does this have to do with what the gatekeepers think of as market share, right? As what will bring in more tourists or more spectators or more audience? Are they still seeing the bottom line as being right?
no.
Okay.
We have these fabulous, I love them, meetings that we're all invited to go to, and now, and it talks about all of our market demographics and who they really are. And this department has reached out to Black people and African Americans and asked them the hard questions. They tell us what we all say. And I find that, and these are about the future, who is our future consumer? And I find that they're paying very close attention to what we want. Not just to get us in the park and spend our Black money, but what we want to see and what we're embracing. And that's why I said the success of Tiana. And you know, sometimes it's what people are buying, that if they're buying it en masse, there's an interest in it. So, and the interest isn't just Black people in Tiana. How many little white girls did I see dressed up as Tiana during Mickey's Not So Scary, or even during the day? So our company is watching, and they're asking the hard questions. And it's like Marsha did yesterday, what are 2 words when you think about Disney? And we're not just looking for affirmation. You know, what do you think of? And I have loved these meetings.
Yeah, I would go on to say, yes to what Anita shared with you. We're asking the hard questions, but we're also looking at who's going to drive the work. And that's why across our company, a version of my role was created. I moved from being the person in the room trying to lobby as a show director to, it speaks to our leaders who said, we want to do more than ask the questions. We want to have a team that looks to hold our teams accountable for where we can make the difference, to where we can tell different stories, to where we can hire different people, to where we can cast different people, to where we can write different stories. Who's going to lead that work of accountability? And that's the role that I'm now in for the global team, leading that team for live entertainment. My counterpart on the product side of the business, consumer products, games and publishing, gaming, and all of those kind of interactive media, people leading that work. There are what we call champions across the business who are leading that work. The work of developing stories that becomes guest facing, though, is time intensive. So there's more going on than what you can see now. Is it enough? No. But is it evolving? Yes. So, yeah.
And she's not going to say it. She's our global big cheese in charge of all this stuff. So, yeah, she's there. And I just, you know, we've met recently because we work in several departments. And I've always seen her name when you need to ask Marsha. Well, when something would come up about expanding a demographic in something, and just to get a backing, who you need to ask Marsha. So she's got her voice in there, and she is having a say.
And Stephen's role was created.
Yes.
And talk about how your role as it relates to our casting team is informing different approaches, different dialogues, so that we can listen, so that we can figure out what the opportunities are.
Yeah, so for some time, you know, we've talked as a global team of casting directors about the need to have a more concerted effort to reach out and establish a sense of community with the world in which we are auditioning in. That it was no longer acceptable to travel around the world, popping into cities and auditioning and then heading out, but rather building a sense of community and relationships with the spaces and places that we visit. And you know, particularly when it comes into college and university level spaces, to say, hey, these are where the future talent that we want to find is coming from. These are where the storytellers are right now for the future. And if we can help and support that development process, then we would love to do so. And so that's sort of the basis of where my role was created, so that there was someone on our team that every day wasn't waking up thinking about, oh, I have to cast this musical, I have to cast this special event, but every day waking up saying, who can we connect with as a team, and where can we get better plugged in within communities. And so that's sort of been the work that I was doing, and I think it ties into, kind of going back to your question, like on the business case for this work, to evolve who our storytellers are, what those storytellers look like. I'm sure there's a business case somewhere for executive that's making the case as the consumer changes in our country, you know, and being able to match that, I'm sure, but I'm grateful that we are far removed from the business side and there are in these creative spaces where our goals are strictly to ensure that our audiences that are coming in see themselves reflected in our entertainment offerings, and that our casts that are currently there don't ever walk into those spaces that we've probably experienced where you are one of one, and not just from a cast perspective, from a, you know, let's say like back of house, or when it comes to casting, stage management, and kind of other operational and technical roles as well.
Cosmetology. Also, I just wanted to put out there, Stephen's role is fulfilling, keeping us from being those people that just show up when we meet Black people. So when he talks about building relationships, he goes and does what he's doing right now. Because I started my professional career in 1981, and that was very much how my journey was. When you needed me, you counted me.
Yeah.
And then because of my skin tone, I wasn't necessarily what the creators thought of a Black person. So, you know, all those things, we're hoping to change all that. But he is paving that road and trying to build relationships all over the country with schools and organizations so that it isn't that where you feel like you're just showing up when you need Wakanda.
And I think we don't want to make the presumption that everyone knows about these opportunities that we're talking about, because I think for many, many years that may have been the attitude, the spirit that, hey, we are Disney, people will come to us, and we don't need to do any of that work. And that's, we all know that's just not true at all. Sorry, I see your hand there.
So I'm sorry I was late to the party, but I want to say one of my first theater memories with Disney was going to see Aida. And when I went to see Aida, I saw Asian Nubians. And I thought for a minute I was pulled out, and then I was intrigued by the fact that the story didn't change. And while I was in college, this was my first time seeing colorblind casting. However, recently a young woman I know is cast as Snow White, and that bothered me. She's wonderfully talented. I know her, she's talented. But the idea of a Black woman being Snow White, just, and so then I thought to going to see Princess of the Frog with my daughter and being hurt that she became a frog through the majority of that movie. I sat and watched Soul and watched him become a cat speaking with the voice of a white woman inside.
Right.
And I sat in these movies and I said, when do we get to see us? I understand we have Lion King, but I'm sick of Black people being the animal. I think it still brings a point about that we want to be human, we want to see a story. I mean, I want to show my daughter, she's 16 now, but I love Disney. Beauty and the Beast, I saw it a million times on Broadway. I saw it with I think Andre McCurdy, with Tony, I saw it, because that's my favorite Disney movie. So the color of the princess doesn't matter to me, but sheesh, how great it would be to see a Black princess be Black.
So, yes. Yeah. The conversation that we had a little bit earlier, and it is one that I can only say to you that I am on the business side of the organization where these arguments are happening. And I'll say, to some extent, I won't say so much arguments because transparency here, post George Floyd, people listened in a different way, okay? Prior to that, the business case statement didn't lean to why we needed to have these conversations. And now I can honestly say to you that there are many who are asking and pushing those same questions to say that this cannot be a moment, that this really needs to be about a pivot point. I can say that there is work that was going on prior to George Floyd, but definitely what happened, what shook the world, has accelerated things, has empowered those same kinds of questions. And we got full transparency. We have got a way to go. My excitement in being here in a room of institutions committed to those perspectives, those stories, is also listening with the fact that, yes, I am here with the Disney Parks team. I'm part of the Disney Parks team. But I'm also aware Disney has many other platforms. And in this digital age, if the parks platform can't drive that change on our own, there are other opportunities and other platforms that, again, those same insistent voices, just like yours, are trying to say, can we leverage those other platforms to continue to tell those stories? So all I can say to you is yes. And Many audiences have shared and demonstrated their support of that opinion by not having the same kind of affinity for the brand. You know how they say you demonstrate where your passion, you vote by coming into the park. It is not lost on people that we have not moved the needle with the Black community in the way that we want to. And that's why I'm saying in the business circles, these conversations are being had to say, well, why is that? And it comes back to what you just said, what you said.
So I have a question. You were sharing about how with the women of Wakanda, that was something that you crafted that was special to the park. How many of these stories do you get to like create out of, like pull out of the Disney, scripted show or movie or
If
what
I
have you?
understand you correctly, quite a few, because a lot of our interactive opportunities come from a story that was told and expanded upon with guests participating in them. Or a script that was written to expand on a story that is embraced by a lot of Disney fans. Was that?
Yes,
Yeah.
okay.
Yes.
That is what begins to give the teams in the park some level of latitude, some level of creative ability. How do we bring them to life? That's the way we describe the parks. It's where, quote, the films come to life, where the characters come to life. What does that look like? That is what the creative teams do.
And then you review with your team those metrics of how it was received, and the hope is then that whatever you've accumulated can then shift back up to senior level creators.
It's more of that word that was up there, collaboration.
Okay.
Anything that we have put in the parks, if it came from a film, you can assume that the people who are associated with film have had to sign off on it in some way.
Got it.
Yeah.
And my other question real quick is, when it's a casting question, when you are auditioning folks, is it specific for a role that's featured in the park, or are you just doing casting, you receive the folks and then you identify where you would like to place them?
All of the above.
Okay.
So yeah, I'd say the majority of if you go to like Disney auditions and look at those notices that are up there, they're almost always going to be for a specific project, so that you can equip yourself, and prepare yourself for that audition. That's not to say that from one opportunity you wouldn't be identified for something else, either another project that we have in the works at that same site.
I go to everybody's callback. I'm assigned shows and areas, but I go to everybody's callback.
So it's that, and we are a global team, and the goal is to share out on that talent visibility. So there are cases where someone, our peer in Hong Kong, says, "I'm really looking for a Nala for this show. What do you got?" And then we kind of all try to share some of the top talent that we've seen recently, so that they could explore their interest level in an opportunity in Asia, because that may not be in the cards for them. That may not be something that they're interested in doing, but we don't know until we ask. And then similarly, sharing domestically for those similar opportunities.
Thank you.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so this might already be in the works, I don't know. But we recently had the pleasure of Halle Bailey being Ariel in the live-action Little Mermaid, which is one of my favorite things in the entire world. And I just want to know if, the live Disney internet, if that's going to be implemented, to your parks at some point. If that's what it is.
Yeah, I have a picture on my phone of meeting Ariel from a couple months ago, so kind of debuted along with the film.
And I traveled the country looking for it.
She's saying
her.
I'm sorry?
Is this the same event where she sang at the castle, that whole thing? Oh.
That was actually Halle Bailey, right?
Oh, I thought you were talking about okay.
Oh yeah, no, she's not. We can't get her. No, she's doing things.
Although we did get her.
Yeah.
You did, yeah.
We do have her. She is For those of you who heard the presentation yesterday, the Disney Dreamers Academy, where we identify 100 young people every year. This is targeted for the African American community. We target 100 high school age young people. We have for the last 16 years, we had the COVID year, so 1,500 young people. Last year and for this year, from March of the year that just concluded through March of the next year, she actually is the ambassador for that program. So she came in and was part of the academy. She was there, Marseille Martin, a group of folks who are, Marseille Martin, that's another person who is creating some great content. So bottom line is this, we look to build upon those relationships, but she won't be in the park specifically doing shows.
Yeah, but you will get to, you do have an opportunity to see Ariel
California
and Paris. Yeah, in Paris as well. Yeah, and those, both of those debut right alongside like the film release as well.
Can I come back to the point that you made though a moment ago, just tagging on one other point? One of the other things with this non-traditional casting, and then we should probably talk about representational casting in a moment. Your point about there's something that bothers me of just thinking we can just cast anyone for Snow White or just maybe cast anyone for Tiana. The question that my team asks as we are making these choices, we are saying, yes, very often we're creating fantasy worlds, but there are real world associations. And we have to be accountable for those real world associations and those histories and things like that. So it is a bit of a balancing act when we step out of the way
I
of what
can't
was
even
missing.
imagine the ideology around trying to make those decisions because it's so nuanced. Because I also felt my second favorite is Little Mermaid. An unpopular opinion, I did not think she needed to be black. I found it to be gimmicky. I did not find an affinity, although Holly slayed the role. I felt like redhead women are also not represented. Redhead girls with freckles, you don't see them either. There's something about them missing. There's something about them not seen. So we have to erase one to create one instead of just give me some black stories that are mine. I want mine. Please.
If I can jump in, because I've been this is my question. In terms of innovative storytelling, you have to have an innovative story.
Yeah.
Right, a new story.
Yes.
And so if you're creating, who do you pitch these stories to? You know, who are the people who are listening for those new stories?
And that's why we're here.
How many people are around the table of the story, the new project for Disney? Is that diverse and inclusive? Those people that are at the table saying, okay, we're going to do something new for Disney. Are black people at that table, or is it all other?
We're talking different rooms. Again, think of the concept of us as the end user. The teams that are really driving and creating the stories. Those are different rooms than the Disney Live Entertainment team.
Right.
What I can say about those rooms, though, particularly now, is in concerted way, other voices that are challenging the norms, the accepted, are being brought into those rooms. And there are many of us who share this sister's opinion who are likewise trying to get into those rooms earlier. Because what happens in our business very often is, again, full transparency. Even if we raise those questions as powerfully as my sister did over here, if it happens at the point that something has been greenlit and it's so far down the path, they feel hampered, business, feel hampered to change only but so much.
Right.
But what I can say is happening in our parks now in concerted way and across our business is much more intentionality. And we are finding leaders now who are pushing back sometimes. Speaking of hoop-de-doo, because that almost got a remount with no changes. And we pushed back because of the representation or the lack of representation or insensitivity to Indigenous Native American community. And we pushed back on some of the storytelling on that show, and they stopped it. They edited script, they changed casting, they changed scenic backgrounds. We went into the nuances of script, removing certain language. So there's a necessary tension inside the organization. Those things that can be changed, those things that can be reimagined, and then those things that can be created anew. And they're all happening at some level. They're all happening at some level. And then there are other ways that in our park experiences that we're finding to celebrate culture. Both World and Disneyland have something called Celebrate Soulfully. And it is a curation of Black culture, both visual arts, storytelling. They have drum circles to bands and jazz artists, to storytelling, to gospel choirs, to a little bit of everything. We're leveraging other platforms, even within the park, to try to say, we see us, we see you. And they are being authentically curated and presented.
I just wanted to do like one quick little temperature
Reality check?
Yeah, reality check, thank you. How many of you were planning on putting up work here during our time together today, if any? Or was it just coming to listen and learn?
Because it's
Y'all put up work. They gonna put up work.
I want to be respectful if you prepared and planned on coming in today, or if we are.
I did not prepare a plan, but it's like I would also do it.
I have an offer invite and you can shoot it down. This seems to be very important, but if you want to perform now, you can, or you can Zoom with me later.
I would love to.
Would you like that?
Yeah.
All right, so I gave
Because I
out
also
my
don't
last
want to dilute
week.
the conversation
I will
that's
meet
happening, so
with
it
you.
really work.
I will meet with you, and by the way, those of you that performed yesterday, it was so hard.
And we are
for
gonna.
those of you that didn't place, if we had 2 first place, 2 second place, you know, everybody would have gotten something. They were on the right side of the decimal point.
Yep.
Right. Until you landed. So, bravo. Don't leave here feeling like something went wrong. If you didn't place, because when I made it back to the room, I asked whoever you were working with to please tell you all, I have never seen such professionalism and such preparedness. I could spend an entire day or 2 or 3 days in an audition room of professionals and not see what I saw yesterday.
Thank you for your flexibility, and we look forward to spending some more time. But we are going to touch on some information that we do want you to know, though, on just kind of general auditioning stuff. But we also want to dive into.
But I'll give you my email, and we'll set up a time, and we can Zoom.
Yeah.
You can send me your latest, and we can talk about it.
Yes, patient in the back.
Yes,
Thank you.
A couple of years ago, I had a young lady in Flint that wanted to audition for Disney, but her mom, after she did some of the research, found that what was being presented was not real. How do we help our young people know what's the real casting for Disney instead of something that's online that says Disney on it? That is not Disney.
Absolutely.
So,
I have some thoughts on this. So there are a couple of things.
He has thoughts.
I have thoughts. So first of all, it depends on the medium, because I think a lot of those phishing, those scams are geared towards people who are aspiring to be in film and television. I'm assuming that was what that was about. Because there are all these predatory people and companies, unfortunately, in that space. For some reason, they don't think there's as much money in theater scams, for some reason, but because we don't have those experiences very often. But the first thing I would say is checking those sources. It feels like, from the film and TV perspective, they pursue talent through agents, through legitimate agents and representation. And there are very few and far between opportunities, though there are, where they put out these all-call searches around the country. That's just now how those businesses operate for the most part. So if you look at those casting calls from these third-party companies on behalf of Disney, I would proceed with caution. Almost.
If you don't know that that's what it is, where specifically could one go to find casting for Disney?
Yeah, so the second part of that, yeah, was absolutely going to be, you know Marsha, Anita, and I, and Mari, and you can reach out to us and ask, is this legit? Because I have a relationship with Susie, someone who has a Pacific Islander cultural arts group based in Utah. And so earlier this year, she reached out to me to say, hey, some of the parents in my community have got this audition notice for Lilo and Stitch or Moana. Disney Plus was looking for performers for this. Is this real? And so from that, honestly, before I could even try to reach out to film and TV partners, just by skimming through the audition notice, I knew it wasn't going to be legitimate because of the typos, the email address. It was like all of the scam 101 red flags that were in there that we get in our D-Learn experiences. But then also just some of the other flags of the pay-to-play, those things to say, hey, this is not something.
So you can reach out to us.
Okay, I need something to reach out to you.
Okay.
Yep, I'll give you my card after this, so that you have a contact.
That would be awesome because
Yeah, DisneyAuditions.com.
And DisneyAuditions.com.
That's legit.
Is legit.
Thank you.
You want to get through the rest of that and then come back to
Yeah,
questions,
yeah,
just to make
yeah,
sure?
absolutely.
Because that may answer some of those questions.
Yeah, I'll quickly go through some of this. When we talk about our company here as well, I do want to continue to point out and highlight these global opportunities because we do have the domestic sites in California and Florida, and we have all been privileged to support projects and work on teams that extend far out in this globe. To highlight a few of them though, I think from a domestic standpoint in California and Florida, people seek those opportunities out because they're great chances to, one, stay within the country, but also get a chance to join a union if that is a part of your goal, if that's on your path. On the West Coast, some of our performance opportunities are fall under the jurisdiction of AGVA, and your chance to join that union, whereas in Florida, we fall under the jurisdiction of Actors Equity. So for those on the performers that are just starting out in their career, if that is something that you aspire to do, then we used to say it was the easiest way to get your union card. Yeah, because before you ever start rehearsal, you got it in the mail, and you knew you got all of the benefits of that union, which are more important than ever. And then our international opportunities, I like to think we were talking about this as they are incredible transitional opportunities and chances to travel and see the world. And I say transitional because as you think about if you're in the education system or your training, and then you are thinking of what the next move is going to be, whether that be a move to Atlanta, New York, DC, Chicago, LA, wherever that may be. Those are all expensive and to make those moves. And so that's why people end up seeking out Disney Cruise Line, Asia, and Paris, because there are opportunities to save a good chunk of money, to get to perform professionally, and essentially subsidize that move. Dan Lavona, one of the casting directors on our team, talked about his experience in Tokyo and walking into New York with 10 grand in your pocket is a very different experience than trying to find a survival job immediately, and so that you can actually focus on the act of auditioning and training and doing all that. And those are opportunities. I think the benefit of being here in the US is that our international team of casting directors come through the US multiple times a year, and we partner with them. So if those are opportunities that are ever of interest, to immerse yourself in these very different cultures, and that's an incredible opportunity there within the company. Moving on quickly, also talked about the disciplines that we support as a team, because I think the traditional understanding of theme park entertainment is like we look for those triple threats and singer dancers and like the kids of the kingdom 80s of Disney and what that looked like and who those artists were. When in actuality, we have so many different disciplines that we support. I think the number one question I get when I talk to colleges, especially is about actors, because we have opportunities that are strictly for actors. It's not about having to sing on top of that. It is enough to be an actor. And what that means is, underneath that heading of actor, it could mean, scripted shows in the most traditional sense of a one-person show. It could also mean a comedic improvisational actor and leaning on those skill sets, and even immersive experience now, and growing that side of our offerings as well, which is a really unique space to step into and apply, to understand and learn the muscles it takes to exercise in that immersive experience world. Very similarly, when it comes to dancers and vocalists, we have all sorts of types of vocalists, types of dancers that we look for. And then I want to particularly highlight some of these like specialty skill roles, the things like puppeteering and stunt performance. In many cases, we have really highly specialized roles where we look for someone that has had extensive stunt training to be able to do high falls and tumbling, things like that. But I would say not always. And I think one of the exciting opportunities that I experienced was the chance to come in with zero puppeteering experience and learn and be paid to learn how to operate a Michael Curry puppet through a 5-week rehearsal process, and then add that skill to my personal abilities. Same thing with stunt performers. One of the last projects I went through was casting actors for the Star Wars Galactic Star Cruiser, so it's kind of in that world. But we looked for some stunt performers who could ultimately have the story built up to this ultimate duel, good versus evil, Rey versus Kylo Ren, with a lightsaber battle. And while we looked for people with that extensive stage combat experience, what we found were we leaned heavily towards actors with strong understanding of spatial awareness, body control, yes, maybe the stage combat experience at some varying level, but it was the strong dance ability and viewpoints and like all of the theater experience that helped prepare them for the training process to ultimately be able to exercise that stage combat. Also, just really quickly, here's a look for those people who are like, oh, I haven't thought about this, and I am an actor, and I'd like to explore. Yeah, please take pictures. That's easy. This is just a quick summary of like where you could actually demonstrate those skills within our company. And if everyone, oh yeah, you want to go back and get that? Okay, cool. Thank you. I want to quickly get into this because we hire artists from many different walks of life at many different chapters in their stories, and that's exciting. But I think that there are a couple of sort of primary chapters where we find people within their journey, and the first is that entry-level time period in their lives and in their careers. So oftentimes it's when you're just starting to finish your time in training in college and university, or outside of those systems, and it's that first opportunity to perform for a living, to either get your first paycheck as an artist, or to completely subsidize your life, and you become a working actor, a working singer, dancer, whatever it may be. And that's that really exciting time we recognize, where we know you're going to also get a chance to demonstrate those skills on a daily basis, a couple times a day, depending on the show. Perhaps join a union for the first time, and it's incredible. Sometimes it's a year, sometimes it's a couple years, whatever that journey may be. And then they go on to do bigger and better things. And we get to just watch from afar. Just at dinner last night, talking about all of the artists we've had the privilege of connecting with during their journey, and that source of pride. And then we also have people on the other side of that chapter, of that life cycle, where they are out there in the world. They are the veteran performers who have been in those major markets, or they've been out on the road touring for many years, and they're just looking for something really different. They're looking for a work-life balance. They're looking to get off the road. They're looking for a backyard, whatever that may be. To steal the words directly from one of our performers recently, who left a 10 to 12 year run in Wicked. I think when she was interviewed, she said she just wanted to put her daughter to bed at night, and she knows she could not do that with that call time every night. And so what it affords artists at that point in that chapter is the chance to be fulfilled still artistically by performing professionally, and then, because of schedules, also flex those skills outside of the company, at a repertory company in town, and sort of just evolve into that new space. And I think what it does is, to lend from my experience, which I mentioned really briefly yesterday, you get a ecosystem where you have new and experienced all together in a rehearsal process. And for me, that was my direct experience when Marcia first cast me in Nemo. I was coming right out of school, and I was trained with someone who had an extensive Broadway career. And I got to watch him rehearse every day. And so I got to see on our equity breaks, as people kind of filed out or went on their phones, I got to see him pick up the puppet and go into the mirror and start working again. And so I looked at him and thought, if he needs to do that and has this career, then I cannot just sit back and relax and assume that I am doing everything right. And so I got to just be a fly on the wall in that experience. And so I think it's a pretty special environment when those two sort of chapters come together. And then the last is the person who opts to stay, the person who finds a career rather than a gig. And it's whether that be on stage or off, it's the person who consistently reinvents themselves and finds other shows and other projects to be a part of. And we have many examples to pull from the folks who do that. But the exciting ones as well are not just ourselves, but our partners in the creative process, our show directors and technicians, writers, production managers, producers, who all started in these on-stage roles that eventually, through their time with the company, with the organization, were able to transfer into these other opportunities and develop careers that, just like ourselves, like we never imagined pursuing here. So I think I saw a hand back here, and I think that maybe, no, it's down. Okay, well then, I would love to, before we jump into kind of the next, yes?
I think they just said they wanted to do it via Zoom.
Yeah.
Or do you want to do it in person?
So,
Perfect, that's great.
but also, I guess it's up to you, like if you would prefer, like.
I know personally, I know the intimacy, this is very public, and when it comes to feedback, sometimes it needs to be a protected space, so I'm happy to do Zoom.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's the plan. I just wanted to make
okay, I
sure.
thought
before we, yes.
Can I ask you to qualify something, and it really goes back to the question that was posed before? Audition notices for character roles versus what may be an equity role. In my own experience working with people or hearing from people outside of the business, outside of our business, when someone who really would have been a strong equity performer wound up at a character audition and wound up going into one of those character roles or a face role and had a not great experience because they were not, their potential was not maximized. So can you speak about when you see an audition notice, how do you know the difference between what may be character, what may be equity, et cetera?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, yeah, so we have pretty specific language on with our opportunities. So Marcia was referencing what we call here as our character lookalikes. So these are the roles, if you think about a visit to a theme park and the characters that you may encounter during your walks through the park, those photo opportunities, and characters that you would experience along a parade route, something like that. Those are our extensive and very talented team of character lookalikes. And so all of those opportunities are not going to be scripted roles. They are more about bringing to life that character in a meet and greet experience with our park guests. And so you're always going to see it presented that way on a Disney live entertainment audition as a character opportunity. We also will try to delineate between the two because our actor, vocalists, some puppeteering roles, those roles will also include the language about the unions that they are governed by or under the jurisdiction of, rather. So if you were interested in a Tiana vocalist opportunity within our parks, to use that example, if it's at Disneyland, they would also say this is an opportunity that is a AGVA role. It falls under the jurisdiction of AGVA and what that union dictates. So we would make that clear within the audition notice. Very similarly with Florida. It would say this is an equity role and have very specific language that we are required to include to make that delineation even more.
So yeah,
please.
the Disney character lookalikes and the Disney character performers are going to be the non-union. They are governed, they are in a collective bargaining agreement, but they're not going to be equity. Usually, and like Stephen said, the actors, the dancers, the vocalists, the stunt performers, it will say in the audition call that it is in Florida, an actors equity role. And in California, it's AGFA, American Guild of Variety Artists. Not to be confused with AGMA,
Right.
American Guild of Musical Artists, which is the sister union to Equity, which means I have 2 of my 3 kids were professional ballet dancers and they were AGMA. That was the union for AGMA. So they could go to an equity audition in New York and get in and not have to wait until all of the equity performers went. So that's AGMA. AGVA is the one that Disney does. The musicians are AFM, American Federation of Musicians, and it will say that on the audition call. So the auditions say seeking, and it's going to have that language.
Yeah, actors for, and the character opportunities again would say, and I'm forgetting the exact verbiage right now, but it would say for character roles within the parks.
And those are meet and greets.
Yeah, and they would also include in the language like the description for a recent one, like for the live action Ariel, talked a little bit about the fact that these characters appear in the parks and meet guests, X amount of guests each day, and get a chance to bring this to life in the parks, which varies from our more theatrical language that you would see that.
And a good example, we used to have Voyage of the Little Mermaid, which I mentioned before. The mermaid, Ariel, that sat on the rock, was Equity because she sang. There are Ariels at meet and greets. They're not the same. And just because she's Equity and on the rock was an Ariel, she could not do a meet and greet because she was not approved for the meet and greet experience. So although it's the same character, it's a different kind of categorized role. And it will say that in the audition call. So I highly recommend, especially with the DisneyAuditions.com. There's a lot of information in there, and it doesn't look like a normal call when you're on non-union things like backstage, and it just has little blurbs. It's very detailed. Read it. It's very important to click all the links and read all the verbiage. It is very helpful and helps you make a better decision on what you'd like to do.
Yeah, I think, we just did an audition tip on our Instagram account because we tried to provide a lot of this information on the front end, and it was all about reading the audition notice specifically. And I think what Katie said was all of the answers to the test are written in there. And because we try to provide as much information as we possibly can to equip people before they step into the room. Yes, you had a question in the back.
Yes, you're right, it is very detailed. And I'm like, sit your tail down because you can't even do this. I just looked on the website. So, but for the sake of students, preparing for your audition, I still think if it's a Zoom link available, could you answer just briefly, what are good tips to prepare for your audition for actors and for singers for the musical theater audition?
Yeah, I'm going to have to pay you or buy you lunch because you're setting me up here to dive into some of that information. We didn't rehearse that before, I promise. Yeah, so talking about some of those tips, the things that we would want people to know about a Disney audition. One thing we don't ever want to do is speak in absolutes and speak for an entire industry because there are plenty of people that will do that. And what we want to do is talk about like the things that we see and feel would probably best set you up for success, to your point.
And what's he saying? We're not going to say this is the only way to do it, but this is just information.
Yeah, from a technical standpoint, the first step to what we discussed earlier is DisneyAuditions.com. That's for all of our live entertainment opportunities around the world. We're going to post that there amongst other places, but always here. And what you can actually do is create a profile. And also elect to receive audition alerts so that you're receiving specific information that you would like to know, projects that you would be interested in as well. But what you would encounter once you do that is the opportunity to create a profile, and it's really how we run our processes now and share talent from a global perspective. So you can go in and sign up to upload your headshots, your resumes, links to any professional reels and things you'd like us to see, or just a video that you post on YouTube. And we encourage all of that content because it helps create this well-rounded demonstration of who you are as an artist. And we're able to use that along with the experiences in an audition room or in a callback space to really get to know who you are and where your strengths are.
So can I add to that? When you get into it and you read all the stuff, you will be given some information to record and submit. And on some profiles that I go through, I'm the one that's scavenging everything because I do special events. And I do things that are outside of just the daily operational park things. And I got in a real bind because a client wanted something and Disney Event Group wrote a script and they had something they needed that was very specific. And I was going through everything I could. On the back side of this program is a program that we have where we can see it. It's called Google. And we look at it and it has all your things. When you submit something for whatever show it is you're interested in, some people would go in and take it down once the audition was closed. Leave it there. Maybe you have skills that we don't have a show that has that. like you're a ballet dancer and you danced for 4 years with a ballet company, and the only thing you're submitting is stuff for the Castle Show or the Christmas show or things like that, and my partners and clients might create something and I need that. So it's on. So when he's saying put your information out there, don't put a lot of junk. That's another thing about that. Before I came to Disney, I used to do a lot of workshops on auditioning and professional profiles and branding and all that other stuff. And people would have YouTubes and just everything was on there. Be very judicious about what your name is on in the public. Make sure that it's really good. If you think it's in, take it down. But if you have your videos on there, it's a resource. And if the audition comes and goes and the casting and the director has already made the decision, sometimes things happen and we have to go back. And if you don't know if you're the next one on that short list. So make sure that your stuff stays there. Don't get bitter and upset. Leave it there because we have your name and maybe you didn't make it into the pool identified to train, but we might need to go back and look at it. Especially me. I might need to go back and look at it. And we can go to our director and go, you like that. Look.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's your profile is a great place to keep your very good things.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to the session on Friday about I think it was titled Content versus Art, and it's the idea of like your digital footprint as an artist. Like that's your brand. So having easy access to your art, your strengths, and your abilities for casting teams are invaluable now because it's so easy to have a YouTube channel of your project. I've just put in, I'm not talking about things that are inaccessible. It's putting yourself on a video in a practice room or in your bedroom of you doing your monologues or doing your songs and getting content out there to the world. I have shared talent with our team on the West Coast from TikToks I've seen, if I'm being honest. I feel really old saying that, but because I don't fully grasp and use all of social media, but I do follow artists and singers and actors, and then when I see an outstanding vocalist who is based in Los Angeles, I'm going to send it to our casting directors on the West Coast to say, do you know this person? Or you should get to know them if not, because they are phenomenal and we should try to find a project for them. I saw a question in the back.
Hi, how are you?
Hi.
You may have covered this, but I haven't heard much about, in terms of diversity, in terms of people with disabilities, what opportunities are there for them? And going back to the conversation about storytelling, is there anything on the boards with expanding the storytelling to include people with disabilities? I mean, as we talk about being marginalized, we normally think about skin color and gender, but we don't talk about, I mean, even at this conference, we don't have any representation for people with disabilities. So does Disney offer that, or is that in the pipeline?
Yes,
Laurie has an answer.
This
is Laurie. Can you introduce yourself?
Oh, hi, I'm Laurie. I'm from the technical side of our organization.
Can you hear her?
Can you guys hear me? No? Okay. All right. So in some of our more recent shows, we have been looking at that. So sorry.
It's already on.
Oh, great. So in some of our shows, recently in Rogers the Musical, they did cast a dancer who is in a wheelchair. So we are looking at some of those things and finding, the best people for that role. Obviously, as we've been talking about a lot of these other things, we still need to do better in those spaces, but we are casting some of those people with disabilities as well and looking at that as well.
Yeah.
I can also speak about in Paris and in Hong Kong, they are actively working in that space. And some exciting things that comes out of approaching inclusion and not as an accommodation only. It has become a part of the vocabulary of storytelling. And there's exciting work being done both in Paris and in Hong Kong in that space, which started first as signed performance, but then those performers became part of the company. And in concerted way, then we are looking at our back of house, how we can also make it inclusive of people who have all levels of ability.
And may I also add to that, as you're going around the country, and what I think is really wonderful about you coming to this particular conference is, first of all, I want to applaud the fact that you're here, because the fact that you're present means that you're trying to expand how you're telling stories. You're trying to be more inclusive. But I'm wondering if there's been any conversations about talking to some of the playwrights who represent some of these historically marginalized communities, getting them to come on board to assist you with developing stories. I mean, when we talk about playwrights like Dominique Morisseau, you talk about playwrights like Michael R. Jackson, you know, these are well celebrated storytellers who won Pulitzer Prizes, who won MacArthur Genius grants and things like that. So I'm just wondering if that's something you're considering. And I know Disney Theatrical is a completely separate entity, but this is multi-layered, but I also want to applaud the diversity of Disney and all of its brands. And I think people don't realize that Disney is more than just cruise ships and theme parks, but your ABC, your Marvel, your Pixar. There's a lot of diversity, so I applaud you for that, because Wakanda Forever, it's y'all. So, so I thank you, and you're doing what you can do, and what, to quote Maya Angelou, when you know better, you do better. And I think you are doing better, but it's going to take time to create that change, so thank you.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, and I will just say that our colleague who could not join us, Shelby Jiggets-Tivoni, heads up advanced creative development, and she is a champion in that space of making sure that when we have the opportunity to begin to incubate for other stories, other opportunities, she is definitely a champion in that space. And you are very correct that we have across our business various levels of incubation. I have just recently introduced our Dreamers, Disney Dreamers Academy. One of the things that was very exciting, we have filmmaking and storytelling careers as one of the tracks of the 100 Dreamers we're bringing in. Disney also partnered with Howard University. No Howard University folks?
You know.
But for, there is a new initiative, multi-year initiative, which is, I wish I could remember the press release, but it is for storytellers. Mm-hmm. So we are looking at different levels of incubating talent in various mediums. And we're happy on the park side of it because that's another resource for us of storytelling. So thank you for that comment.
Yeah, I loved your sorry, I won't keep it moving. I just want to say I loved your comment about accessibility. Mm-hmm. And I think it's one of the things we as a team think about consistently is not when it comes to who is in this space telling this story, and constantly looking at that room to say who is not represented in this space. And that speaks to actors and artists with a disability as well.
Real quick, let me just clarify. Is this specific age or age range that it's asking for?
What are you reading?
Because it says height, I get that, we can't lie about that. But it says age, example, 20 to 35.
Is that for a character description?
It's for, on the site is listing, like for actors or singers.
That's an age range that you can play. You're not going to come in the room and someone ask you how old you are.
Yeah, so we do have an age to be able to work for the company, yes. Yeah. And that will typically be in the requirements of the role, like if you scroll all the way down through an audition notice, will have sort of requirements like you have to be a U.S. citizen to work in, or must be able to work in the U.S. to as a term of employment. Same thing, you must be 18 to work in some sites. But then also we would have in the character description, we may introduce the age range that the character appears as, or describing that character specifically,
So
saying,
it's not beside the characters.
Yes, yeah, an exact same.
Got it. It's not beside the characters though. That's what I was asking. So we're under, say, singers, seeking performers in general, age 20 to 35, height, blah, blah. That's what I'm saying. So it's very specific.
It's a stage age.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yep.
Yes, this is a question about vocal casting. I realize in the park, you're looking at, I guess, live performance, but you may have recordings, things that announcements, etc., and then also for film and TV, animated features, you need vocal actors. Can you talk about your influence on that and how that might work? You may be able to share, because often our students are so glued to being on stage, they don't understand that there is a world of being able to have a complete, fulfilling career as a vocal performer.
I can speak to that a little bit, and I don't know if you want to talk about it, but we've had our opportunities within our parks, so within our side of the business as well, for actors who have been hired or cast to do a specific stage production, but then we are called, just as Anita has events that come up, we have voiceover projects that come up within our park system. You mentioned like the announcements and things like that, where we look then internally in some cases to say, who do we have that could provide lend a voice to this specific project, whether that be a firework production, a stage announcement announcing a band, announcing an actor, artist, or even my most recent example or experience in casting for that was when we opened the Galactic Star Cruiser. It's essentially an immersive experience in a hotel. There were voices that are involved within the entire stay, within that experience that the guests interact with, whether on their devices or overhead. And so we went through a casting process internally to identify voice talent for that project. And so whether or not it was something that they've ever done, we recognized through the audition process that they have a unique sound, a unique skill set, and that they could lend in order to go into the studio and get into that world and actually have friends and colleagues who from those experiences then recognize like, oh, I like this side of the world, and saw more opportunities even outside of the company to expand their opportunities for voice work in that huge world.
A large part of the time, not completely. We have actors within the company that have the skill of voiceover work. However, when it comes to the movies and the television industry, if I'm speaking to the room, there is an entire career. I did it when I was younger, that you can get involved in, but just like it is with movies and television, it involves being represented by an agent. And nowadays, it's easier to create your own content instead of in the dark ages when I did it, where you had to go somewhere to have a reel done. You now have the equipment in your home or your friends' homes to create it, and you can do some work, do some research to find out what those tags sound like and what the content is. And it does require representation, but at Disney, because we have a vast array of talent, someone I was not allowed to do it because I was in management at the time, asked me to do some voiceover work just by hearing me answer my phone in my office. And I was like, well, yeah. And I thought they'd read my resume and they're looking at my resume. No. It was just, hi, this is Anita, you know, and so that is a huge career.
Yeah, and even because of the scale of the company that you mentioned, and there's film and there's TV and all of that, oftentimes they overlap, and there are projects within the parks where they leverage our talent and our equity, our AGVA actors end up being kind of carded up for that project to do a SAG-AFTRA shoot for the day within the parks, and those are.
Sometimes people do come in from the outside, but there are tremendous opportunities.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No worries. I want to quickly talk a little bit about more to the audition experience again, and some of those best practices. When we think about preparing for a Disney audition, the first thing actually, and there was a question that was asked when we first started.
Yeah.
You asked, like, do I need to do something for Disney? Because that means like a specific thing. And I would always say, like, the answer was no. Because the answer
because
is...
of this situation.
Yeah. Is always, serve the project is the goal. Finding material that serves the project specifically that you're going in for. But we would say, like, we are all adults in the room, and we want you to have the best experience possible and portray yourself in the best way that you can. So if that is rooted in real world material, then we want to see that. We don't need to see Disney material, what that means, kind of the stereotype of what that is. The most important thing is going to be making choices, making real choices, and achieving that level of truth and authenticity that probably also gets lost in the mix when you think, like, I'm auditioning for a theme park, for a cruise line. People ask, what do you want to see? What is the thing that kind of gets you through to booking the gig? And it's the person who tells the story in an authentic way. It's not the presentational sort of expectation, but still trying to achieve, like, the truth that we saw on display yesterday during the monologue competition as well. Knowing we want to achieve the exact same thing in our stories and within our storytelling.
Can I add one thing to that? The thing that was very good about what you all did yesterday is we got to see your range. We got to see contrasting pieces, and that's the only thing that I would add. In addition to finding that thing that you feel you can deliver, and it may come from real world experience, you may have someone, transparency, in the room who can't see you in whatever it is you may be auditioning for. So you may have a champion sitting there saying, do you have something else that you can show us? And if that something else gives us some sense of your range, then that makes it easier when you leave the room to say, did you see the range there?
Yeah.
I do see, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So that's a great,
It really helps me in the cast, and I'm speaking for myself, in a casting room, if I can see you have an understanding of the material that you're auditioning for. That you understand what the brand is, and I don't mean you have to come in and dance and sing wishing well, but take from the literature, there's something take from the literature that you have, and even before I was in casting, before I was at Disney, it's very important for people behind the table, because like Marsha said, there's going to be someone behind the table that's not convinced, that has never thought about us, in a certain role, and I spent that auditioning in that situation a lot. So it really does help me do my job, because I'm the casting director. I source the talent, I bring it all together, and I call you back. And then the director comes in the room and has a look at everything that I have selected for them. And they decide which direction they're going to go, and ultimately it's their decision. So I really, if I think you're extremely talented and ready for this, I need you to come in the room and help me show the team that you belong in this. So if you got a lot of F-bombs in your monologue and blood streaming down out the back of your ear, out of your ears, it doesn't help you. But your character type and your essence, I would say be true to that. If you're an ingenue or you identify as an ingenue, bring me that material. If your essence and you identify as an antagonist or a romantic antagonist, bring me that material, because Disney has Gaston. He's a romantic antagonist. Everybody's falling in love with him, but he's not nice. And we have Frollo, who just, you see from the very beginning what he looks like, and then you have spunky ingenues. So whatever you're auditioning for, bring me that, be yourself, and bring me that. I may want to be Cinderella, but I'm gonna kind of think about the storytelling and figure out where I fit in that story, and maybe I'm the fairy godmother, and that's the material I'm going to bring into the room. And when Stephen says real life, real world experience, that means the material has to speak to you. And you've got to be like you were yesterday. I just love that y'all were so connected to your material, because that's a heightened skill. So you've got to be connected to your material. But as me, as a casting director, it helps me do my job. If you know the product and you bring me something that's going to sell you, that clears my goggles, my binoculars, and go, you know what? You've never seen anybody in this role before. How about it? Let's try it. And the director, and that's before the director gets there. So the director comes in, and there you are. That's how he got his job as Marlon.
You know, I think it's so much, before you ever step foot in the room, there's so much about the mindset and preparation for the audition experience as well, that I wish I knew more of back then. But, I think there's so much outside of your control when you are stepping in as one of 10, one of 250 to be considered for a project, that if your only goal stepping into that space is to book the gig, then you're going to be disappointed more often than you are satisfied stepping out of it. But if you have achievable goals that are exclusively within your control, then I think there's so much more power in that experience. Like if your goals are, I have my beats mapped out, and this is what I'm going to have my beginning, middle, end. I'm going to try a new song today. I'm going to try and hit this note, or whatever those goals are going to be that are strictly within your control. One, you're going to be able to diagnose a lot quicker than you get like an offer call, because you can step out of the room and go, okay, what worked, what didn't? Did I achieve the things I set out to do? But there's also so much more power in that, in like seizing the power of that audition experience. And let me tell you, like, it is evident when people walk into a room with strength. And I'm not like confidence and not arrogance, because I think those are different things. But walking into a room with strength, knowing I have prepared for this moment, and this is my time to come in and demonstrate the thing that I've been training for, the thing that I drove here or took a train to get to, and I've been waiting outside for. So this is my time to demonstrate it. And I think it's, from a casting perspective, speaking for myself, it's really evident when I see people that come in and take hold of that moment.
And there's so many things to unpack in that. It's hard not to walk into an audition room and your goal not to be to get the gig, and that's your job to mature as a performer. You are not, what you're auditioning for today may not be in the universe what you're auditioning for, because there's always someone like me behind the table. If you walk into a room and I'm in there, I've got a spreadsheet. And I'm writing down all your business on the spreadsheet. And I have a little note section. I will start to list all the things that you're great for. And sometimes that's not my show that I'm in there for. So when I speak to people, the one thing I want them to understand is what you're auditioning for may not be what you're booking that day. And That's why I call it a one-person show. A lot of people will pick something the night before to sing for the audition. That's going to distract you in so many ways that you don't realize. I want to see, your audition really should be what you're going to look like after you've been through rehearsal and after you've been through tech week and you've put your costume on. I need to see what you're going to look like on my stage. And if you're doing something that you barely understand or have barely grasped, I don't care if I've heard you sing the song 6 times.
Right.
Because I'm casting different things, and you may sing this one song. I don't recommend just having one song, but I'm just saying, you may have this one song, but I work with 4 different directors. So if that song clears up for all of us how we can use you, or what kind of product you, what spice you bring to the recipe, then that helps us. So it's your time to do a one-person show for us, and think about your audition. Your callback is the goal. The show is the present, is the gift. The callback is your goal. And if you get called back for something, that truly means go ahead and embrace it. I don't care if anybody contradicts me. That callback means you've just booked the show. That callback means I can see you in this show. So when you come to your callback, bring everything you brought to the initial audition or the initial submission. And if the director gives you some adjustments, they're adjustments. They're not flip over changes added to what you brought into the room to clarify what they need to, what they would like to see.
Can I speak as the director behind that same table? To your point, prepare well, because I very often, when I engage with an actor who's before me, I'm exploring what the experience of working with you is going to be like.
Yes.
And I'm looking at, oh, I really want to work with this person. But you can only work with me if you know your material well. Because if I give you a suggestion and it totally throws you for a loop because you learned it the night before, I said, oh, this is not an actor who prepares. So you're telling me something about yourself. But if I give you a suggestion and you may not know exactly what I'm asking for, I also look at the kind of questions that you ask me. Or if you get so defeated by what I've thrown. So what I'd say to educators, make sure that your people have audition material that they can relate to, but also engage with them, because I can feel people who have something they've done so many times, it's locked and loaded. It's not quite phoned in, but if I throw them, give them something elsewise, it will totally throw them for a loop. And I love to go into the experience, and Stephen knows this, with the sense of, that's why they call it a play, with the sense of play. So prepare well, and instructors continue to get them to listen, to think, and listen. Listen well.
Because if you gain a show that you just, it's a vehicle for you because you're just perfect for it and you're perfect for that lead role. Let's say you book that show 4 times a year. You're going to have a different director every time. Different blocking, different, so you need to show the director that you can adjust. But yes, preparedness is really great.
Yes, yeah.
Readiness is all.
We've been sitting here for a little while, and I did not know what I was stepping into, honestly. I knew it was about Disney. I did not know it was about live auditions for Disney. I'm a little tired, but I don't want to leave here. It doesn't look like, I want to see you all in action, so I'll be willing to audition for you, or put on a performance so that we can actually see what y'all do. Because if you go Zoom, we'll never see them. So, yeah, so I'm willing to do an audition right now, or a performance.
Yeah, I think it's really, I don't know that I can make that determination, because I know we're already over on time, so it's just a matter of if we're allowed to and how long we have this space.
I just want to make sure I understand. The experience was to help with the audition process. Our careers don't sit, and although I have years of experience with coaching, so the thing that you want to see is what.
We leave out of an audition, we don't stay in audition to get the critiques.
Yeah.
So when you go to Zoom with them, we won't know what you told them.
I
But
see.
had they stayed and preferred to do it now, I'm thinking when you kept saying live, that meant we were in the room too. So we would have gotten a
that
chance
was.
to hear.
Well, usually it's not everybody.
I understand that, but when they said live now, it made me think I didn't have to leave. I feel literally.
Yeah, no, that's exactly how this was presented and put together in the app and in the programming and stuff. And that's why I checked in earlier when I was like, hey, we are in a great conversation, but as a result, I know we are losing any and all time that we had plotted out to be able to dive into the actual work and those sort of like audition experience. So that's exactly why I was checking in.
But I think he's volunteering.
Yeah, it sounds like you're up for
That's what I
jumping in
said.
and doing
I don't want that opportunity to be lost. And
Is there anyone in the room that can speak to how long we have this room?
That's part of the lounge.
Yeah, it was.
I think they packed in extra like
It's lunchtime and then there's another general business meeting.
I feel you though.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, let's just get a check on that, because if we do have time, like at least 10 minutes, then we could absolutely do that. That's what we came prepared to do.
And I think you
Thank
said
you.
that for them.
When I come to your place.
And that's what happens when we go to their.
But I didn't think this was that formal.
Yes, but that's what they said it was. I don't know if it was.
Yeah, so let's get a check on that to get an actual.
Mari, are you leaving? for the
She's
airport?
leaving for the airport.
What time's your flight?
Like,
What time is it? What's later?
yeah, that's why I just said, the last thing I would want to do is start and then someone cuts you off and says we got to get out of here.
Are amazing, amazing every
Thank
time
you,
we start.
everybody. I'll let you do the official.
Very sweet.
I totally see why you got this thing.
Connect, because I'm in Gainesville. My whole
You all go ahead.
the reason I started my career because I didn't see people live there.
Oh, we have the okay.
Yeah, you have the okay. My hard stop for you would be 12:55. Does that help? All right, perfect. Because I wanted
You
this.
have time to think about it.
So let's get it done, guys, but I got
It's the same thing.
12:55 hard
And there's
stop.
some of them
You
are
gotta
going to
meet
high
me at
school,
1:15.
and I'm finding out all these opportunities like the same mechanics. So they don't get that same information from the programs at their schools because they're one of, one of two people in the thespian program. Or they get to go to the thing that where kids go and they learn a dance or something at Disney, but it's still getting like you towards things. And I would love to either set up a workshop or with the mayor or have somebody come and speak to them.
What we'll do, let's just make sure, because Steve
We do, yeah, we have time.
travels a lot, and
I mean, we could bring them, Orlando's not that far.
I was about to say,
Yeah.
we have worked this out, like, field trips or even doing some things. Let's get your band and move.
I would love to do that because I would really, we gotta do more to get them in that space, in the spaces.
Can you do this? Can you, I'm gonna.
Okay, I have an answer.
I left my.
We were told we do have this space for another 15 minutes. A tight 15, a hard 15.
Hard 15.
Yeah. So we will have time. And I talked to Kelvin. Kelvin is going to step outside and just mentally prep now because he didn't plan on that. So I want to make sure he has a couple of minutes.
Yes, you're in this.
And then when he's done talking, we'll just close out the last bit of this.
Thank you all so much for being present. Stephen, thank you all. This is how I had it here.
No, absolutely. Thank you.
And also, a link, I'm sure you have a website.
Yes.
Send me your email address and a link to your team.
Okay.
And then also, figure that out. Like I said, you're just Gainesville.
Yeah, we really are. Literally are.
That's the same conversation we had with FAMU. It's like right down the road.
Yeah, that's flat. That's flat. I like that hat.
So
Thank you so much.
Hi. What's your name again? Lori. Nice to
One of my closest colleagues in Dallas, and I was trying to tell her, I said, I really am in a space where, you know, it's like the same thing. They're blessed, and that's what you're really out with.
Oh, okay. She enjoys it.
Yeah, go inside.
And it's a good way to say it.
I gave her last part of she was just in Greece and just like, you know, so it's awesome to
see the world. And on the cruise line, they do things in rep too.
Yeah, so it's kind of like locked in, you know, so, yeah.
Do you?
I do. So I work in art education as well, but independently I do theater and
Well, thank you for being here. Hi there.
Hi.
How are you?
Michael Coffey.
Michael enjoyed you yesterday. You were great.
I was wondering if I could get your email and I can connect throughout my career, just off of like how you play with this vocal.
I don't have my phone with me. Did you download the Woga app?
Oh, yes, I did.
I'm there on the Woga commercial. And I'm also going to make sure, I hope that you feel connected to Stephen as well.
Steve, oh yeah, earlier yesterday.
Yeah, just send me a note there so that I can.
Alright, I will. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Congratulations to you.
Right. So you say,
you want a picture for that BTN?
I'm sure. How are you? Congratulations to you.
Come on,
I look forward to seeing you. If it's something that Disney is up your alley or something you see in your future. You never thought about it. You never know. You never know.
I'm always open.
You said the magic words. Be open. Be open.
I just want to meet you.
Oh, I appreciate that.
I love that color, yeah.
Yes, my little feeling like I've been on a beach somewhere.
I love it. I'm sitting here like, oh, look at mine, look at mine. Yes, it's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, and thank you all. Thank you.
All right. You want to stay or you able to stay?
Oh, I didn't know if that was still happening. Yeah, okay. Okay. Hey, my friend.
She is so wonderful.
Well, thank you. I'll receive it.
And we know it's sincere, we know it's honest, we know it's helpful. So thank you for being here. I don't know if they know how invaluable this is, because to come out of college and look at Disney and try to get in,
it's a great opportunity.
I did not know about this opportunity when I was in college, so this is
right.
They're way ahead of the game.
It's a great opportunity. To make some money, get some benefits, get your union card, make some connections early in your career. Yeah, it's totally available. And what Steve was saying is true. There are those different generations of artists there. And those artists who made that transition trying to
Lost your audience.
be at the West Coast.
Yeah, that too.
And making those connections, getting those life lessons on how to kind of survive as an artist in the community.
Yes.
Y'all ready?
Ready.
The audition.
All right, let's do this.
All right, you know what?
See it.
Here, let's lose the. We can turn this on.
Oh, did we lose Anita?
We did, so it's just you and I, Marcia. I'm sorry.
Never mind.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm gonna.
I gotta get my
trouble
phone.
for that. So now you have a space here, an open space.
Okay.
Let me
Get out of your way. Again, Kelvin, right? Kelvin, okay. All right, so in true theatrical yes and improvisational form, we're gonna pivot and we're gonna jump in because Kelvin volunteered to jump in. You know, as I mentioned, we originally presented this opportunity as a chance to go through a lot of the information and then ultimately actually dive into some of the work that we do around the country. We go to colleges and arts groups and we do audition workshops because that's what our team does all the time. We see auditions and we see performers and we try to just impart the bits that we know and our opinions to help hopefully better equip people before they come into these Disney auditions. And so that's how we presented this. But again, as I said, we got into a great debate, and rather than just try to stick to it, let's have a conversation. That's what we're here for. But Kelvin was kind enough to offer up the chance to jump in and present a piece for us in that kind of audition experience. So I know you're already seated. It looks like you're getting into it. But can you stand up and like tell a little bit about yourself before we get started?
Oh, tell them about me?
Yeah.
My name is Kelvin Hamilton. I am originally from San Antonio, Texas. I reside in Houston, Texas. I am a high school theater teacher. I am the fight coordinator for the ensemble theater. I am an actor. I'm anything I need to be for the students at the school.
That's awesome. I see you have the Texas Southern.
Oh yeah, TSU Tigers. Yeah, marched in the Ocean Soul, played football, did the telecommunications, did my internship at CVS. I did all that while I was in school. Yes, I had fun in school.
Yeah. Great. And what are you going to be doing for us today?
I'll be playing the role of Sam. Sam Hart Williams played Home, C for Smiles.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. Whenever you're ready, feel free to.
All right. Did I ever tell you how I learned to speak Indian? Well, there was this light-skinned colored man from Crossroads. Told everybody he was a Cherokee chief and couldn't speak no English. Wore buckskins and everything. Smoked a peace pipe. Couldn't speak no English till he wanted something. Well, we were down by the bay, just a dancing, eating fried chicken, having a ball with old Chief. That's what we called the colored Indian. Old Chief came to me and said in plain English, "Loan me $2. I want to buy Lottie Bell and me a chicken sandwich and a beer." Well, see, I gave him the $2, but I told him I got to have it back by Tuesday. He said, "Ugh," and started being an Indian. Everybody started laughing and saying no, Chief wasn't going to pay me my money. I waited 2 weeks, no money. But finally I got tired. I saw old Chief asleep in front of the hardware store. I woke Chief up. I spoke slow and soft. "Chief, I want my pocket money." Now, I know you don't speak no English, so what I'm saying won't mean nothing to you. But I'm gonna go behind this here hardware store and I'm gonna find me a brick. And when I get back, if my $2 ain't on this bench, I'm gonna take that brick and I'm gonna bust it across your ass in 1,000 pieces. Then I'm gonna whip your lying ass all the way to your happy hunting ground. Well, when I got back, there was my $2 sitting on the bench. I picked it up, waved it to the fellas. They stopped laughing. Oh, and that's how I learned to speak Indian.
Nice. Well, thank you. First off, again, for the courage to just jump right in. And I don't know if everyone heard, but he said he didn't plan on doing anything today. And so he took like 2 minutes to go outside and just like get in the right headspace and go, which is also like so important, you know, to always be able to have that thing to pull out. Because even if you come into one of our auditions, or any audition for that matter, and someone says like, "Oh, like, do you have a blank? Do you have anything that I can see, you in this particular light, and to be able to have the mental repertoire to be able to pull that out is also kind of demonstrates your level of preparation and commitment, you know, to the work and to the project. So I just want to like lift you up for that.
Thank you.
I also like one of the strengths that I saw in that performance was, you know, I don't, in many cases, we don't have the context of the piece, the original piece that it's from. And so in this case, I am just clearly going off of you and the story that you're telling. But what I enjoyed was that initially you did a really strong job of establishing the who you're talking to in this piece. And for me, it was geographically, which I think is often overlooked, of like, where is the person that you're talking to? Because the person in this conversation impacts everything, you know, the relationship dynamics, and status, like all of that. And so I saw where you placed them almost immediately. I would say be careful that once you've established it, that you always go back to it, especially in a piece like this where you get to tell an actual story. You're recounting a story here. So you get to use the space and then come back to it, and always making sure you're checking back to that same space because you've established this visual. I would ask, like, who are you talking to in this as well? Like, who have you decided this person is, or who is this person?
Well, it's really, in the story itself, he's really talking to himself and to the audience. He's breaking the fourth wall. The character's actually breaking the fourth wall, and he's really just determining what is he going to do in life.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, he's just stuck in his home country town, enjoying life, when really what he wants to do is go off and venture off and create a new life for himself.
Yeah, okay. So in the way that you presented this, you're talking to the audience.
Yes, just talking to the audience.
And this fly. Okay, yeah, I think, you know, if we were working this piece and prepping for an audition, one of the things I would encourage is to make it more specific, and rather than, even if in the presentation of the show, this is breaking fourth wall, I would say, what does it do if you pick a specific person, like a singular person that you're communicating with? Because, like, to go back to it, like that's a relationship there, and that is probably, I would assume, changes the way that this piece is performed. And I think, you know, some of the like smaller details, like, are they enjoying the story? Are they laughing? Are they responding? Impact how you tell it continuing down the line. You know, like if you're telling me a story, I'm going to check in on your body language, your cues. Are you checked out? Are you laughing? Like all of the things that we do in human to human contact. Those are the things that then come into play in this space that we have here today, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. I also. Yeah, I guess that informs the other questions that I had. It was like, who are you talking to? How do they feel about it? Are they laughing? Are they engaged? Like all of those things, because then you're going back to that same person and checking in. And that would be the only other thing that I would want to see, because I think the piece suits you well, and especially in this context where we're not auditioning for like a project. I want to get to know you, and I want to get to know like where your strengths lie, and I think this piece showcases that.
Well, I actually had another piece, so I wasn't going to do this piece.
Mm-hmm.
But because of the like, we've been here a while, so I just wanted to do something really more lighthearted.
Yeah.
So hopefully it did.
Yeah.
It was something people could enjoy and laugh, just to bring the energy up. Because the other piece I was going to do was Sergeant Waters from the Soldiers Play, a lot more direct and heavy. But I was glad to do this piece, only because it is,
I like this character because he allows me to be loose on stage, and then it allows for the use of flowing on stage. I don't have to be in one spot. So that's why I actually chose this spot, because I just needed to move. I just needed some freedom to move and to be imaginative. It's a very imaginative piece, and the tempo of it. It was also because I hadn't done the piece, trying to find the tempo and how to transition from one thought to the next thought that's happening in the piece. That was a bit of a challenge, not having to have any rehearsals before then. So that was my whole reason for doing this, because I wanted to get some feedback, knowing that I hadn't done this piece, knowing that I really liked this piece.
Let me jump in.
Yeah, please.
And I haven't seen Home in forever. It was great seeing it. It was great seeing it. So, assuming we're in the same room, some of the questions that I might ask you, in prep for you to do it one more time, if you're willing.
Okay.
What is this piece about? You've told me the plot.
Yeah, okay.
But what is it really about? For you, what's Cleophas? That's a character's name, right?
Cephas Miles.
Cephas, right. What is this about for him?
For him, he really thinks God is not on his side.
Okay.
He really believes that, and he needs encouragement. He needs that push to do what he really has to go after what he really has in his heart, and that's start a new life without his Patty Mae Wells.
Okay.
He really thinks it's gone.
This particular moment. So yes, and.
Yes, and.
That's what the story is about. What is this moment about?
Oh, this moment?
This particular moment that you have just made us
enjoying life, enjoying being in the country life.
Okay.
That's really what it is.
How many people are in this particular scene?
There's one other person in the scene with me.
Okay, and that is who?
That would be woman 2.
Okay.
And she's playing one of the, I would guess, the antagonistic characters, a nondescript, non-titled person, because there's 2 women that plays a variety of roles.
Okay.
So that person doesn't actually have a name, but they're the ones telling him, get on that train, man, go to the north. You know that's what you want to do.
In the scene as you shared it with us, how many characters do we see?
Just one, just that.
You and Chief, right?
Yes.
Okay. And the person that you're talking to.
I'm talking to.
The person that you're talking to.
Yes.
So there really are 3.
Yes.
Because you're doing it for me.
I am doing it for you.
For what? What do you want me to, how do you want me to respond to what you're doing? What are you proving to me?
I want to prove to you that I am a very good storyteller, that I am a very good entertainer.
Okay. How about if this scene is really about respect?
Okay, if this scene is about respect.
Is Chief giving you respect by pretending to be asleep?
No.
Okay. You want to be taken seriously, don't you?
Yeah.
Okay. You see how
and I also, well, you know, as you say that, again, thank you, that's a very good question, because the audience are also the guys over there that's laughing at me as well. They are also the audience as well.
Okay. So there is
it's this naive memory of being a young guy growing up, thinking that he can handle the street business, or that country business, and he gets taken. So he gets played by the game by the Indian guy, and then he gets ridiculed by.
So what this scene is about is you proving you can't be played.
Exactly.
Would you agree?
Yes.
Okay. So that's the scene.
I would agree with that, yes.
Okay. So that's the scene that we want to see.
Okay.
You proving that you can't be played. Okay. So what's at stake for you is not being played, right? Yes. So let's up the ante of the stakes of you not being played.
Okay.
When you realize you're being played, there's an audience that's responding, oh dude, you're being played.
Yeah.
You've got to let us in on, you know you're being played.
Okay.
Right? So then you play the player even better than he plays. Yes. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay. So let's see that scene. Let's see how you respond when you're being played. Let's see you win.
Okay. Okay.
Can we see that scene?
Yes, we can.
Okay. And that's what compels you to tell us now, because now you have a reason to tell this audience, I can't be played. Let me tell you this story that shows you I can't be played.
Okay.
And what happens when we tell a story? We sometimes exaggerate a little bit, don't we?
Yes.
Okay, let's see that scene.
All right.
And don't think about it. Come over here and start doing it. Hear the laughter.
Did I ever tell you how I learned to speak English?
No.
Speak Indian. Well, there was this light-skinned colored man from Crossroads. Told everybody he was a Cherokee chief and couldn't speak no English. Wore buckskins and everything. Smoked a peace pipe. Now couldn't speak no English till he wanted something. See, well now, we were down by the valley, dancing, eating fried chicken, having a ball with old chief. Now see, that's what we call it, colored Indian. Old chief came up to me and spoke in plain English. Hey, lend me $2. I went and bought Lottie Bell and me a chicken sandwich and a beer. What? I gave him the $2, but I told him I gotta have it back by Tuesday. He said, ugh. And started being an Indian. Man, everybody started laughing and saying I wasn't gonna get my money back. I mean, I waited 2 weeks, no money. Finally, I got tired. See, I saw Chief asleep in front of the hardware store. I went over to Chief. I spoke slow and soft. Chief, I want my money. Now, I know you don't speak no English, so what I'm saying won't mean nothing to you. But I'm going behind this here hardware store, and I'm gonna find me a brick. And you don't have my $2 on this bench when I get back. I'm gonna take that brick, and I'm gonna bust it across your head into 1,000 pieces. Then, I'm gonna whip your lying ass all the way to your happy hunting ground. Well, when I got back, that was my $2 sitting on the bench. I picked it up. I showed it to the fellas, they stopped laughing. And that's how I learned to speak Indian. See.
Good. See, good.
Hey, Kelvin, I want to say thank you again.
Yes.
We can chat a little bit more after this, but we just have to get out of this room physically. So I just wanted to wrap up and say thank you again so much for everyone who stayed and stayed longer to be able to have conversation with us, with the team, on behalf of the folks who I know had to step out as well. But again, just thank you for the time.
Thank you.